Let's go. Welcome back to Startup Talk. I'm your host, the Startup Coach, and with me today is Dr. Jim Feng, founder and CEO of Phyxable. Welcome, Jim.
Thank you, Craig. Thanks for having me. Really excited about this session today.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this conversation. I've known a couple of companies in this kind of game, obviously not doing what you're doing, but in physiotherapy. And I know a few people in physiotherapy. So I'm going to talk a little bit about those questions. When I say in, I mean taking it because they've got injuries and whatnot. As somebody who's lived over 50 years, things happen. And
9 out of 10 people are support.
Yeah. So tell us about Phyxable.
Yeah, Phyxable is an end-to-end pain prevention platform. So we help people from physical pain to preventing them from, their injuries from happening in the future, and then human performance on the more esoteric side. So I drive a lot of, I get a lot of push and positivity when we're working on the performance side. But a lot of people still come in at pain, and we do this with a guided approach with a practitioner, and guided with digital solutions. So we have programming as well as really cool technologies to make sure you're engaged and you're pushing forward. So with some of our research, we've shown like 103% better outcome measures than your traditional clinical experiences. So that's what Phyxable does in a nutshell, and we can dive a little deeper as we move forward.
Oh yeah, we're going to get into that. But I usually like to start off understanding the entrepreneur a little more. So what were you like when you were growing up? Were you a handful for your parents? Were you studious? Were you into music, sports, socializing?
Yeah, I've done a lot, growing up. And if we're going to go dive down, I get along that path, along that journey. I'm an immigrant. So I came here to Canada when I was about 8 years old, back in the late 80s. I won't tell you what year, but somewhere around the Tiananmen Square, standing in front of the tank, that image, that was us. My father first came here a couple years prior, and he basically laid the grounds. He sold everything that we had back home to buy one-way ticket here, and slept in the subway station for a few weeks prior to getting him settled, washing dishes in Chinatown. A few years later, he sent enough money back to us for us to get a one-way trip. They came as refugees, and we lived in a room not bigger than this all together for 3 years with 14 other people or 12 other people in the household. I slept on 2 chairs for 2 years, and that's kind of my upbringing. So growing up, I didn't really have too much. My parents were working all the time, so I was kind of left alone. And then my sister, they had my sister 12 years, 13 years apart from me, because one kid grew up back home. So when they got settled, so I was basically a father, taking care of this kid. And I wrestled. That was my main sport. That really kept me off the streets. And I grew up in a not very good area of Malton. So for all those people know the Rexdale area and Malta area represent. So a lot of crap went down as a kid growing up in these terrible areas. But I think I already always grounded myself through sport, and had a lot of responsibilities. So I got into trouble, tons of trouble. Also explored quite a bit and just understand what was right, what was wrong. And I think the sport of wrestling really kept me in the game. My coach, Martin Sherlin, he's out there. He really kept me in the game, and keeping my head straight, because there was a lot of crap going around. Like, I have friends who were just like my neighbors. I lived in the complex, and my neighbors would literally chop bricks of, don't know that bricks are like bricks of weed, and they're selling through the windows, and I can see this happening. So pretty bad area. I think it also taught me a lot of lessons moving forward. So that was kind of me, I guess, early days growing up.
And what was your early career path like? Did you go to college? What kind of jobs did you have?
Yeah, I went to U of T in physical education and health, and that was like, this is pre-kinesiology, I guess. And so I always wanted to get into the field of physical therapy and rehab. So I dove down. I understood the field really well because, as an athlete, I got destroyed. I had a torn ACL, MCL. My neck was destroyed. I had numbs and tingling at the 8. Back then we had OEC, grade 13. Like, at that point, I had numbs and tingling going down the arms, and I had tons of injuries. And I had to travel an hour and a half away to get physical therapy, because that was a recommended clinic that we went to, and I had to bring my child slash sister along with me during this ride. They go to practice. It was absolutely terrible. And I thought, like, how can we do this better? Right. So that's kind of my early experiences there. And so, I went down this path of kinesiology and just understood that, this is something I want to do. And then eventually landed at the chiropractic field because my background, from what I've seen in the industry, the best practitioners I thought were really good evidence-led chiropractors, not the ones that just crack and smack them out the door. The guys who are really evidence-led, taking the latest research in sports medicine, physiotherapy, and chiropractic care, and then we're able to now transcend, empower the patient, me, to do what I need to do to, not only get out of pain but also stay out of pain.
And at what point did you want to be an entrepreneur, run your own business? So you want to be a physiotherapist and get in this space, but you could work for another person, start your own practice, but all of a sudden you're like, all right, I'm going to do this thing that is related, but start this platform. At what point did you want to be an entrepreneur and be?
Yeah, that's a great question. That's a great question. And I think I've always been an entrepreneur at the end of the day. I love creating. I love the creativity of that and want to kind of really show the world what we can do from the healthcare standpoint. I think the system's really, really broken. The thought of healthcare and the actual definition of what's going on in healthcare is not the right word. So right now, majority of the things you go to your doctor for, family doctor for, is pain care or disease care, really, right? So, outside of that, they tell you, hey, work on your nutrition if your cholesterol levels are bad, and maybe, hey, do your exercises or see somebody in that regards. But there's no solution for you when it comes down to the prevention side. So for me on the tech side, I built brick and mortars. I built, franchised them. I've had multiple clinics, integrated clinics, and kind of the best model and best care model. One of the first that are fully integrated in Canada. And I started there, and I treated patients for several years until I got into the tech field. So tech, I helped co-found a company called Remedy. We built one of the first cloud-based EMRs or electronic medical records back then, and that's how it kind of got introduced to the field. And from there, an angel invested a little bit and just realized I am a operator at the end of the day. It needs to be in the grind. I want to make sure my product thoughts and also understanding the user, like making a really, really great product. And I want to be leading the charge there. So that's how I got into Phyxable back in, the concept was probably like 10 years old, but it really came down to probably 2017, end of 2017, where I actually started looking for a team. And then it wasn't until like the early 2018s that I actually built a team and built an MVP by the end of the year.
So as a serial entrepreneur, obviously you're tackling problems in your space, which is great. In the physiotherapy space, but I like to say that opportunity cost is infinite. And like, you've done a couple of things. Now you're saying, oh, Phyxable, this is what I'm going to do. Why this company, this idea versus any other ideas that are floating around your head? And tell me, you can't tell me there wasn't any others.
Oh, there's 1,001 others. And the hardest thing as an entrepreneur is that, not picking up that shiny coin. Look at it, look at the shiny coin, appreciate the shiny coin, but don't always pick it up. Yeah, absolutely. And I think I let it kind of brew in my head for a while prior. And I think I discussed previously how, it was in my head for about 8 years, even prior. Like, there should be a system that kind of educates patients, that basically shows patient what best practices are, and then guide them along the way. And we know that in clinical care, about 70% of patients actually drop off their treatment plans because of, number one, time. Imagine a mom of 3 trying to get to their treatment plans. On average, is like 9 across the board in Canada to solve one problem set. And that doesn't mean you're actually discharged. That means like they could be slipping off most majority of the time. So, and then money, how much it costs. Like a basic musculoskeletal, acute care, nothing like crazy. It requires about $980 to solve for the problem, right? And then now all the insurance dollars are getting less and less. If you work for a corporation, it used to be like unlimited physiotherapy. Now it's like $1,000 per year, and at 500 now. Most of the benefits are like $300. How do you fix a problem with $300? And especially in an industry, and especially in Canada here, where we're so used to an OHIP or a universal healthcare type of model of care, right? You're not used to paying dollars, right? So we want to really create a democratize the common stuff like low back pain, neck pain, sitting in front of Zoom all day, your neck is just getting destroyed. We want to give that to people. And then also, take away this hurdle of travel to get to your therapies. And we know that virtual care is as good, or in some cases, in our cases, better than clinical care because people are doing it more often, right? And continue with their care. So that's what I really wanted to create at that moment. And then why did I stick to it was because we proved it with concept, proved it with user journeys prior to building anything. So really understand the UX research of it, and then building out a product to reiterate that, and then version 1, right? Version 1 of it. So it's incremental and trial and error. And I think that's really important for startups in the beginning. You don't have to spend tons of money. Just get the right people at the table to get you past that hurdle, right? I think that's one of the reasons why I stuck with this model. It's working well.
So let's get into Phyxable a little bit. What exactly is Phyxable and what does it do?
Yeah, so you hurt yourself, hurt your back, sitting at that terrible chair, leaning back all day. We're the first thought. So that's what we're trying to do, that first thought of care. And you can jump on a call with one of our practitioners for a free consult to start. Now we're able to also directly bill to your insurance company and then to start your care. So you get a diagnosis with the practitioner. So within the call, I'll get you moving and do orthopedic tests and ranges of motion to understand your problem set and provide a treatment plan along with the guided experience on the platform. So we have video content with sets and rep building, with machine learning, all that fun stuff to make sure that you're actually doing the right thing and progressing along with the treatment plan, exercises, self-mobilization, stretches, all those components. We have thousands of pieces of content that we own that we're able to manipulate and create new programming. On top of that, we're building really advanced technologies with the ML as well as the machine vision. So you're going to see in the upcoming year that if you're actually doing these movements correctly, you can do that just on your phone. And it's going to provide you feedback. So we're able to reduce the overall cost when it comes down to physical therapies. So on one side is that. On the other side is we work a lot on prevention. So I really built this for prevention. Like, how can we create a prevention platform that actually works? Nobody does prevention well. It's because people are lazy. I'm lazy. You're lazy to some degree. And human nature. And human nature really, we're trying to conserve energy at the end of the day, right? So that's just instinctive. But you need to create trust somehow. So we create trust through removing your pain. And then once we remove your pain, then we just tell you the next step is better function, building great foundation. So if you hurt your back, the next step is really building core foundations to prevent these issues from happening in the future. And we know that works through research. And make it human friendly along the way, and hack the user at the way to do better. So instead of taking the notifications through Facebook and trying to make you click more, clickbait, we use the same technologies and the same concepts to do better for your health. So that's where we are at the end of the day.
So I've got a lot of questions about some of the stuff you said, so we'll get into it in a bit. Not all injuries are the same. You highlighted a couple at the beginning. Who is your ideal client?
That's great. We have two. One is that high injury corporation. Now, people run into problems. We really go B2B2C. So target insurance companies, and we talk to businesses that have struggling employees, right? So it's a big problem for them. So one on the high injury side of things, we're talking health and safety workers, specialists, and also HR individuals to understand their problem set, and then we're able to deploy this, right? And on the other side is, and on the one side, think like, hurting yourself at work, right? A major injury, low back, fall and slip and fall, and you broke something, you need post-operative care as well. We do that. And on the other side is more on the wellness prevention. So we have a lot of startup companies actually right now that are looking for a solution that actually that they can totally afford. We can get in very, very cheaply to get you started. And we start with a wellness session very similar to this, talking about your main problem set, being like just your neck is being destroyed, energy levels, like you're feeling dragged down throughout the day because you haven't been moving and sitting there all day long, or posture fixes, ergonomics. We do quite a bit of that. And we have a lot of programming on that. So we start with that conversation to get people into our system that way.
So you talk about prevention versus, pain management. How it's the classic vitamin versus painkiller situation from a startup point of view, literally, because prevention is the vitamin versus, fixing your pain. How do you get people to take the vitamin, to show up for prevention when, human nature is conserve energy, do other things? How do you get them to start thinking of you before the pain starts?
Absolutely. That's great. I think there's different levels of pain as well. So some people are more proactive, like some people work out and they're really proactive at that. And then there's people who just don't know anything. And so you have to approach those people a little bit different. The first bite, I think, on the prevention, and they don't come from pain. I mean, talked about trust and pain and then prevention. That always works with us. But if they don't know and they don't have major pain, it's not big of a stimulus for them to work on this. So you have to throw a couple tidbits in there. One part is vanity. You got to tie vanity into this, right? What they actually want and what are the things that they're looking for, right? So vanity is one. And then the other component is maybe esoteric on the sense of like just better performance or and maybe a little bit of fun, like fear, uncertainty, doubt of what aging looks like, right? Aging looks like for people. So a little bit of scary tactic to look at, hey, for those people who don't work on these things, this might be what happens, right? I mean, not to like paint a really, really bad picture or anything like that, but just common things that does actually happen. So vanity on one side is going to be, we know that core foundation, your pelvic floor stability, as well as your diaphragm really works into low back stability, right? And endurance. So, but guess what? Once that's good, your tummy looks good too, right? So your core looks great, and you think like Beachbody. So, but along the way, we're also teaching preventative measures for low back pain, right? So you got to tie the two kind of together, right? On the other side of things, like for some of the guys who are vertically challenged like me, maybe like having a great posture, it brings you like 2 inches just by sitting up straight and standing up straight. And then continuously moving throughout the day, and we have daily programs of reminders for like quick little movements. So it's not oh, I got to do this exercise for 20 minutes. It's like a 30-second hit, It makes you feel good, and then retains your disc height in your spine, and it also keeps you nice and lengthened throughout the day. So those pieces, there's many others, like for females, like pelvic floor is a big factor when it comes to down to sex, their sex life, especially after having kids. And there's many others I can point to.
So how does the process work? I'm thinking I want a prevention, or I've got pain, and I go to the Phyxable website. What happens?
Yeah, so in many cases right now, we talk to employers, and we're working with insurers as well to get this as fully covered through your insurance, right? And if you don't, you currently have probably like $300 to $500 for physiotherapy. You can just go on the Phyxable website and start a free consultation. And it's just a single click, get on and try it out. I think there's 2 buttons there. If you click on the right button, it just gets you into the application. So you can start on the posture fix. The first level is totally for free. Go use it. If you like it, pay for it. If you don't like it, jump off. But we recommend the guided experience because some of our research show that has about 48% better start to finish from your actual pain problem set, right? If you're working on pain problem set, definitely talk to the prac first to make sure this is a good fit for you, and also just kind of triage you a little bit if there's any other red flags that we might pick up.
So I've got a question here in the chat room about, are you hiring? So let me ask this in a couple of ways. On a two-sided market, how do you find practitioners, and how do you screen them, and how do you bring them on board, and are you looking for them? And then secondly, a follow-up would be, are you hiring, inside your company?
Yeah, hiring for both. Right now, we're growing pretty quickly. Just finished up a round of funding, so it's looking really good. We're currently hiring on one side, on the practitioner side, multiple practitioners, chiro and physio, occupational therapists, and kinesiologists across Canada and to the upper states. And we have a lead clinician, Kelly, and you can just email Kelly at phyxable.com for a resume on the clinical side, and then you can just email support@phyxable.com for the developer side. And we're also looking in probably about 3 months of something in operations. So those are the key ones, and then additional people in sales. So that's what we're currently hiring for. Right now, immediate hires is developers. So we're looking at full stack developers that have a good background either in front end or back end in a merge stack. And machine vision, if you have machine vision background, we're looking at as well.
And practitioners that are on your platform, are they actually employees? How does that work?
Yeah, so there's both options. We have both options, basically, depending on your availabilities. We find a lot of practitioners similar to other platforms like Maple, like even League, and other examiners self like Teledoc. The practitioners like to do part-time. They like to have off hours. They have their clinical practice and then this virtual practice as well. So some work as little as like 6 hours availability to up to full time or more.
And how do I find the right practitioner for me? Because sometimes that's important to people.
Yeah, so I think we have a digital solution with an onboarding rate that we're building right now. But right now we do very human centric. Everyone gets a free consult if you get this link, and we triage you there just to make sure this is a good fit for you. So if you're coming on, you're a golfer, for instance, we get a lot of those. So we're Titleist Performance Institute. Some of our guys are Titleist Performance Institute certified practitioners, sort of physio, and they have these sort of cool certifications to help you prevent like low back injury. That's one specific person. If you're working on pelvic floor, Kelly will probably be a better fit for you. If you're working on neck dysfunctions and low back, that's pretty common. So everyone can it depends on time and availability. So we do that this way right now. And then we also have, a cool little system built in that's coming very soon on specifying more as we get more practitioners on the platform.
So how quickly do I schedule a practitioner, or are they live available to talk to me if I'm in a certain circumstance?
Yeah, currently we'll be live 24/7 service within the next 2 quarters. Right now, we book a quick session, and you can book it for the same day.
And after a session, what does a customized treatment plan look like?
Yeah, that's a great question as well. So we have a whole platform for the practitioners that they can create and cookie cutter create programming for you and sets and reps, and those will change relative to feedback that you give to us. So we're capturing a lot of the metrics for yourself to understand how much pain are you in, how much discomfort, how much range of motion you have, and then it'll actually progress you. So we can create customized ones directly to or direct you to one of the pre-programs, and those are embedded in research. So the best research when it comes to low back pain, best research to neck pain, whiplash, things like that. So if it's like something that's very common, we send you there. If it's like more custom, then we'll create one for you.
Great. And you mentioned a little bit about machine vision and whatnot, but I want to know, how do you track progress as a client and potentially as a practitioner to make sure the client's doing what they're supposed to do and that it's working?
Absolutely. We have a whole dashboard on the practice portal that kind of tracks all your progressions in pain. So really cool graphs. If we're working with other large insurers, we can kind of see how people are progressing, if they're lingering, what have you. So we have a whole data analytics that in regards for the patient to see if they're actually getting better or not. And that's important because if you go to clinical care and in the brick and mortar setting, most times it's like we're just asking a question, simple question, you feeling better? Like how's and a lot of times practitioners are not using outcome measures. So outcome measures actually and based on research. The right questions to ask at the right time for a specific problem to know that you're getting better. And we automate that through our system. So it's very objective in how you're actually getting better. So patient need that feedback as well, right? To know that they're actually doing well here. And I think this is incredibly empowering. So also when to kind of move off of this pain plan to want a prevention plan as well. So, and things are going sour, practitioners are being dinged as well. So we know how these trends are going. And that's one of the key components of it. And we have a whole messaging system in there that you have full access to as a patient to message your practitioner. So we're on top of your treatment plans.
Oh, excellent. Now you mentioned it is covered by insurance. Is that generally covered by all insurances and it's easy?
Yeah, in Canada, we are in all insurances. So it's pretty easy. We can directly bill, or you can pay for it on the application and send your invoices up to insure. But we can directly bill all across Canada. And we have partnership
And
with TELUS Health that does that.
oh, perfect. And what is the cost like compared to going to see a physiotherapist?
Great. Our sessions range between 65 and 69, depending if your corporation's a partner with us, and that's significantly lower than your $80 to $90 costs. I guess $80 to $100 cost if you're just going in to see somebody for physiotherapy.
And how does that get split? Obviously, if you're hiring practitioners full time, you pay them, but your part time practitioners, are they paid by the hour? Are they paid by the session? How does
Yeah,
that
we
work?
have a different variable rate depending on your level of expertise, and it's better than normal. It's better than your market rate.
So they're doing well as well.
They're doing well as well, and they
Uh,
have 10 hours. Some people 15 hours on top of their full-time job, and a lot of times, especially now during COVID, people are really aberrant from going to their to clinics. So the clinics are actually struggling right now, and we've seen a huge rise because of that. And a lot of practitioners are asking for positions actually fixable.
Well, you mentioned COVID, and you're saying this really you started sinking your teeth into this late 2018. Um, and so 2000, late 2019, early 2020, COVID comes along. How did it change your plan? Did it just accelerate things? Did it change what your MVP looks like? What happened?
Yeah, we ran with the MVP for about 6 to 8 months, and just testing things out, just understanding the user, understanding our process, understanding our business model and go-to-market strategies, and just testing UX testing in its full-fledged form. And from there, we understood where the payers are, who are I come from the industry, so I know it pretty well. The payers as well as the patients, where they actually come from, how they find us, and what are some good inklings on strategy for like LTV, lifetime values of those contracts, and what does that look like? How can we bring more to the table for the insurers, bring more table to the table for the corporations, because we have dashboards that are all included. They love that kind of model. So we really understood that. Took a good 8 months to a year to really solidify that, and then that got us to about probably mid 2019, late 2019. This is when we start testing monetization and talking to stakeholders. And then from there, we were able to we're just getting ready to launch. It was, I guess you're going to be good to be lucky or lucky to be good. But when COVID hit, we were just perfectly ready to take on contracts. And one major insurer literally signed up with us for all their virtual care for rehab. And that's what we started. So we seen a huge rise, like 1,500% rise during COVID. And just like other tech companies, it took a little bit of a detour. And then we're just, now this is a new normal, and we're incrementally growing through the new normal really, really well. And people just understood. I think all my parents' friends and mother-in-law's friends, they're using FaceTime now. Everyone's using virtual. Do you understand the value proposition of that and time savings of that? So we just show them how do we bridge the gap between clinical care and virtual care, and what all the different assets and what we do with, even with our virtual chats, we can actually paint on your body and make you move in triangles and things like that, pre and post. So they see the value proposition there. So we've been growing since.
So we've got some interesting questions from the audience. The first one here is, are you a medical doctor? And maybe you want to explain, I don't know what qualifications you need for physiotherapy.
Yeah, I'm actually physical therapy, and its entity is actually rehabilitation. So physiotherapy is a term that's is the like a physiotherapy or licensed physiotherapy. It's an act. Myself, I'm a chiropractor. I think I discussed in the beginning, evidence like by chiropractor. So I have a doctorate in chiropractic, and my background's in sports rehab. So I majority of my stuff I did in the clinical model was rehabilitation based. So exercise, movement, mobilizations, things like that, as well as some hands-on work. We actually bridge the gap between hands-on work and what we do in clinic with just a simple massage ball. We call it Phyxable. You can get onto nooks and crannies. So that's my background. Also a strength and conditioning coach, so certified strength and conditioning coach through the National Strength and Conditioning Association. And that's, think of the highest level of training. So all of your football players, all the trainers there are certified in that. I'm a certified medical acupuncturist as well, and have a bunch of other certifications.
Thank you. Thank you, Jim. How do you mimic the real, this is another question from the chat room as well. How do you mimic the real physical interaction from an in-clinic experience?
Yeah, that's a great question. And there's some great research actually just been recently published on virtual physiotherapy and clinical care, and shown as good or better. So majority of your diagnosis, 80% of your diagnosis is done after a history intake, right? So after a conversation about 10, 15 minutes, I'm going to understand what are my differential diagnoses of your problem set, right? So if you hurt your back, bending forward, brushing your teeth, you're thinking more disc related. If you were turning, like rotating, pushing, you're probably thinking of facet related type of low back injury and secondary muscle tightness. And to reiterate those differential diagnosis and get to that specific diagnosis, we go through orthopedic testing. So that means I'm trying to recreate your pain through tests that are sensitive and specific to a problem. So I go through that, and then range of motion, we can all do that virtually, and then we can calculate those with their system. And then we also go through, if it's not major pain, then we look at functional tests. So functional movement tests. You can look up FMS or SFMA, DNS type of testing. Those are the things that we're doing from a virtual standpoint, and we're recording that to get to that final prognosis and diagnosis. And from there, we could treatment plan, how often you need to see us. And usually it's about 42% less than in-clinic cares, because we can provide you with the treatments that it can continuously follow you along until we need to see you next. So that's essentially how we work in a nutshell. And then you're able to message your practitioners at any time.
Why is it that you having better success than in person therapy?
Yeah. So the test that we did originally was for low back pain and non-specific, like patellofemoral pain syndrome or knee pain. So runner's knee, they call it. And we were able to do that because, remember, when we get to a clinical model, there's science, the hard science around what we do, right? Best practices. There's that. The other side is that human, the complacent, not following my instruction human. And we know that 70% of patients drop off to treatment plans before they discharge. Those are national averages for physiotherapy. So the bridging the gap between that best practice and that human interaction is what we need to really get better at as practitioners, right? Understanding that patient, how do you get them to continuously move? So it's not like a pop in a pill, like where your medical doctor give you anti-inflammatory to reduce the symptoms. You're getting to the foundation of the problem. You're fixing the foundation of the problem. And that's not done overnight. And if you think you're going to a clinic model to get that done as a quick fix, you're totally wrong. And if anybody sells you on that, they are out to lunch, right? Just taking your money, run far, far away. So I think it's really important for patient adherence. That's really important. So here's best practices, and then here's a patient. And I think we do a really good job at bringing best practices, right, from the human intervention to more best practices, right? Because it's easier to get to a solution. It's all faster to get to a solution. We keep you on board. There's notification there to kind of push you along, and it's like in a gamified experience, right? So we're hitting those marks in order to really create, really hack you to do better for yourself.
And it sounds like you're going after the enterprise mostly. Everyone talks about hustle. What are you doing to build your traction with the enterprise audience and get in front of them and attract them versus traditional methods?
Sales, hard sales, and great board members that can open up doors, that can get us in front of people, and painting the pain picture, right? Literally, like for a lot of products, you have to figure out what the pain point is. Our pain point is pain. So it's a lead to attract it. They're talking to the right people there and having a really great sales funnel that we're tracking every metric from stage to stage is really incredibly important. Signaling, understanding your market, and every failure along the way, you're taking that lesson and then reapplying to how you're approaching this, how you approach to each meeting, how do you prep for each meeting, how do you get to those people within the right channels? Is the channel working properly? That's just good iterative growth practice, right? And I think right now enterprise, yes, but I think eventually Phyxable is like headspace for the physical well-being. But it's really hard, for a startup to be direct to consumer, and it's just a lot of dollars spent in the beginning phases. Yeah.
Yeah, I know lots of companies that have started out direct to consumer and then switched B2B, and it just makes sense. You're trying to get so many individual B2C clients and advertising to everybody versus one B2B client where all of a sudden you get 10,000 people who on your platform with one client. What do you find the sales cycle like? Is it, 2 months, 6 months, 18 months?
Yeah, arduous. It's a long cycle, especially with insurers. The beautiful part is that COVID has expedited a lot of those contacts just because they're looking for virtual solutions right now, right? And we're just lucky to be ready at this point. But for insurers, it takes long. For the corporation, it takes a little bit less. So we got to feed on one while we wait for the larger ones to come through.
Yeah, many startups fail to take the sales cycle into account when they're going, and if you've got a long, arduous sales cycle, failing to take it into account can be deadly. I like to share both success and failure, so there's a chance that others won't make the same mistakes.
Yeah.
Whether it's from this company or one of your former companies, can you tell me a time where you screwed up or made the wrong pivot or startup decision?
Where do I start? I think a key component for me is I think over and over again, and I fall victim to this sometimes if I'm not mindful of it. Is even though you're moving fast and breaking things, make sure you have a really good foundation for yourself and what your vision is, and working towards that vision. Sometimes you get wrapped up in, again, shiny coins as well as new opportunities and things like that, and you fall astray from your strategy line too far before you've gone farther enough to kind of reiterate this is working. So I fall sometimes to that, and again, the shiny coin, like it's a real problem. And I think good mindfulness meditation and just understanding yourself and get good coaching along that is important. And when we even talk with patients, a lot of this health coaching, and then we implement their similar techniques and CBT techniques to make sure they're on top of those and being aware. And then the other thing is, whenever you can, hire better. If you can, like, do what you need to do to get these people on board, either options or part of the company now, or whatever it is, to get that awesome person on board is incredibly important. They're way better. They're going to be way better than that, even 3 hires at a junior level. So as soon as you can, try to upgrade. And I'm finding fault with that right now, and I see some of those components of my company where there needs to be a better lead. And if there's a better lead, your stress level and what you can do what you're really good at, essentially, right? And make sure you're doing what you're really, really, really good at. And for me, that's being in front of people, selling, that's in the company, understanding like the model of what we do in our vision, and then also hiring the right people to be on board, and also getting money, getting money to make sure that we don't die a horrible death. So that's what I do really, really well. And even on the clinical side, I can lead some of that. But when it comes down to the marketing and things like that, I'm not so good at reaching out. I'm not really good at reaching out to companies either. I'm good at taking those meetings, but I'm not good at reaching out, right? So I did that early on, and I stopped doing that for a period of time, and I focused on other things. And then that part of the company really had trouble. So I sit on a forum as well with a bunch of other entrepreneurs and executives, and I think that's really important, having a social group around you to give real feedback, and not about you. It's the I guess about the whole company, and that's really important. But yeah, hiring that right person for that position, extremely important. And a quote from Good to Great is, fire fast, hire slow, getting the right people on the bus.
Yeah, a lot of people fail to do that in corporate and in startups. Fire fast or upgrade. And when I say upgrade, the person, when you're a 3-person company, the person you need as a developer, and when you're a 20-person company, the person you need as a developer might be completely different. And just because you're the first developer might not mean you're the head of development, because you might not have those management skills on all that kind of stuff. So,
That's right.
but a lot of times people default into those roles as startups, and you don't rethink saying, hey, I may need, now I need a director of marketing or whatever, a CMO, where I didn't before. So
Absolutely.
just keeping those things in mind.
Yeah, and you write that org chart. You don't have to have that org chart in place now, but write what's perfect, right? So I love the plan because I'm actually, typical entrepreneur. I'm here and there and everywhere. But so to keep me straight and narrow, my foundation is my roadmap, and I have a lifetime roadmap of where I want to get to. Right, I have a specific goal that I keep to myself, and I reiterate every year. And all the tasks that I do, when I'm doing, I reiterate back to and be mindful about the things that I'm doing is working towards that goal, right? So if you can just like paint that roadmap and your org chart, what is perfect for you, and then slowly work towards that, I think that's a good strategy.
Now, you're a serial entrepreneur, been in the community for a while. What resources or communities do you recommend, and why? And I don't care about competition because we're all friendly here, so feel free.
Yeah, I think getting feedback and getting right support is really important. If you're just starting out as a entrepreneur, I think getting to some of the local incubators are important. So DMZ being one, we were part of DMZ at one point, and then we're alumni there. And also getting like Y Space, been amazing. They're a York incubator. They're out of Markham and also York region, and Communitech on the west end there, and I think Spark on the further east end. So check all those guys out, and they're really helpful. There's not much cost to it. I'm sure you can negotiate down as well if you really start from ground zero. See if you're a fit. Getting those resources are incredibly important. Venture Lab being in the York region as well, that's important. We're part of them as well. So getting those support early on is incredibly important, and learn from those who have made those mistakes. And hopefully, you don't still dive deep into those mistakes, but I think that's incredibly important.
Yeah, and I think Startup Here Toronto, friends of ours at the City of Toronto, just released the report on a bunch of incubators and accelerators in the city. So if people
Yeah.
are looking, they should check out there because they've got a bunch. You named a few, but there's a bunch more, and I don't want to name because I'll forget a bunch and people get
Yeah.
upset.
Yeah, check the link. Check the link.
Yeah, I always forget some. Do you happen to have any favorite books for entrepreneurs, or that one
Oh,
of your favorite books?
many actually, but I'll point to one that's not so much entrepreneurial, but just human related, and that's Daring Greatly by Brene Brown. So Brene Brown talks all about vulnerability and ability to create power through vulnerability, right? Instead of being like, I know it all, defend yourself, and when people are criticizing you, be vulnerable, learn from those, and then you'll be a lot more better at yourself and what you do. And also you create a lot better relationships with other people, including co-founders and maybe stakeholders. On the other side, Good to Great, I kind of mentioned, is a good like later on stage type of entrepreneurial book. But if you're pre-planning, read that now. I have a whole list on my Instagram that I send out. Um, um, Not Given F is a great one, and there's one on growth hacking that slips my mind. I'll create a list for you. I actually have a really good list
Fantastic.
on that. I'll send it over and I'll post it for
Great.
you.
I'll put it in the show notes. So I'm going to modify this next question with something from the chat room. What is next for you in Phyxable, and where do you see Phyxable in 5 years?
Yeah, great question. I think next for Phyxable is just honing down on product and honing down on sales and touching as many lives as we possibly can. You can access us just as a consumer, or you can access us through your company. So they're great ways to access us. We're pushing hard into the States by the end of the year. We have a huge bunch of huge product releases that'll tighten up our platform even more. And so from there, we were making a large push. So we have a few raises coming up as well, a few milestones to meet there, and then we can grow faster from there. So that's what we're looking at. We have a few opportunities. We have some partnership with like Loblaw Shoppers Group and League Insurance that we're really excited about. So we're really just pushing hard on growth, really.
And where can people go and find out more? Your website, social media, you mentioned Instagram.
Yeah, just at Phyxable, Phyxable, like a physical fix, right?
And I really appreciate you taking the time to answer our questions. Thank you to the audience for all the great questions and jumping in. Is there anything I forgot to ask, or do you have any parting words for our audience?
I don't think I think you cover a lot of it. From a parting word standpoint, I mean, I think I love the term effective hustle. And I try to live by it. There's so many opportunities out there that you can take as an entrepreneur. Really draw a roadmap for yourself, and then hustle and grind, like sleepless nights, whatever you need to do to cross the chasm, right? Really get that 0 to 1, and just get to that first phase, and try to monetize early or show revenue models that works and prove that. And once you're able to prove that, it's much easier for you to get funding. And you don't have to have the money in the bank, but you can, like, a lot of money in the bank, but just prove those models work. 10 years ago or 5 years ago when I was investing, you can like get investment on a paper napkin, right, with zero funding. But now investors are a lot tighter. There's a lot more startups out there with ideas. So you got to have a product in hand. You got to have some traction in regards to revenue or scalability references there, traction metrics, and make sure that you monetize early.
Sorry, I was muted. Great final words, great advice. Thank you so much for taking the time explaining Phyxable, and I'm looking forward to seeing such great things from you in the future.
All right, great. Thank you for your time.
Have a great day.